Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova and watched the stars. His ship was the first human vessel to travel faster than light. After 200 years of dreaming, humans had finally reached the stars. "Captain," said Lisa Barnes, his science officer, "we're getting strange readings from the sensor array." Jake turned to look at the screens. 3 large shapes were moving toward them through space. The ships were massive, much bigger than the Terra Nova. They had sharp edges and dark metal hulls that seemed to eat the light around them. "Are they friendly?" asked Ryan Collins, the security chief. "I don't know," Lisa said. "They're not responding to our signals." Amy Watson, the communications officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, they're sending us a message. It's in our language." Jake felt his heart beat faster. First contact with alien life. This was the moment humanity had waited for since they first looked up at the night sky. "Put it on screen," he said. The face that appeared was not human. It had gray skin, yellow eyes, and sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was cold and hard. Small creatures in the small ship. "I am War Commander Thexal Vorin of the Zephyrian Empire. You will follow us to our flagship. Any attempt to run will result in your destruction." The message ended. Jake looked at his crew. They all had the same worried look on their faces. "What do we do, Captain?" Ryan asked. Jake thought for a moment. They were far from home. The alien ships were much larger and probably had better weapons. Running might get them killed. But maybe these aliens just wanted to talk. "We follow them," he said. "But everyone stays ready." The alien ships led them to a massive station hidden behind a small moon. The station was 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Lights moved across its surface like stars. War Commander Vorin met them at the docking bay. He was tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and fingers that ended in claws. Behind him stood 6 other aliens, all carrying weapons. "Welcome to Zephyrian Space, humans," Vorin said. His voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. "We have been watching your species for some time." "Watching us?" Jake asked. "Yes. We know about your small world. We know about your weak ships. We know you have just learned to travel between stars." Vorin smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You are very young, very foolish." Lisa stepped forward. "We come in peace. We want to learn about other species in the galaxy." Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. "Peace," Vorin repeated. "How amusing. Come, we will show you what peace means in Zephyrian space." They were led through long halls filled with alien technology. Everything was designed to look threatening. Sharp angles, dark colors, and symbols that hurt to look at. Jake noticed that some of the workers they passed looked different from the Zephyrians. They moved slowly and kept their eyes on the ground. "Slaves," Ryan whispered. "What was that?" Vorin asked. "Nothing," Jake said quickly. They entered a large room with a table in the center. Vorin gestured for the humans to sit on one side while he and his officers sat across from them. "Now we will discuss your future," Vorin said. "The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years. We have conquered over 200 worlds. We have made slaves of 50 different species." He pressed a button on the table. A holographic image appeared in the air. Above them, it showed a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green continents. "This was SciFiPrime," Vorin said. "Home to 15 billion Altarians. They were a peaceful people. They loved art and music and learning." The image changed. Now it showed the same planet, but the cities were burning. Ships filled the sky, dropping bombs on the surface below. "This is what happened when they refused our generous offer to join the Empire," Vorin continued. Jake watched in horror as the hologram showed alien soldiers marching through ruined cities. They were dragging families from their homes. Children were crying as they were separated from their parents. "The adult males made good workers in our mines," Vorin said. "The females were useful for other purposes. The children we trained from. Birth to serve the Empire." Amy made a small sound and covered her mouth with her hand. "This happened only 6 months ago," Vorin said. The Altarians thought they were safe because they had no weapons. They thought we would leave them alone, because they offered us no threat. He laughed. They were wrong. The hologram changed again. Now it showed Altarian children in chains working in dark factories. Their eyes were empty and dead. We broke their spirits in less than a year, Vorin said proudly. Now they serve. Without question, this is the gift of Zephyrian rule. Order, purpose, peace. Jake felt sick. He had never seen anything so terrible in his life, but he kept his face calm and his voice steady. Why are you showing us this? He asked. Because, Captain Martinez, we are prepared to offer your species the same generous terms we offered the Altarians. Vorin leaned forward. Submit to the Empire. Surrender your worlds peacefully. Accept our rule without resistance. In return, we will allow your people to live. They will work for us, serve us, and find peace in servitude. And if we refuse? Lisa asked. Vorin's smile grew wider. Then you will share the fate of all who oppose us. We will burn your cities. We will take your children. We will break your people until they beg to serve us. Jake stood up slowly. I need to discuss this with my government. Of course, Vorin said. We are reasonable beings. You have 30 of your Earth days to give us your answer. If you have not surrendered by then, we will come to your little blue world and take it by force. The humans were escorted back to their ship. As soon as they were aboard, Jake turned to Amy. Please tell me you recorded all of that. Every word, Captain, she said, and the live feed to Earth never stopped. Command has been watching everything. Jake nodded. That was good. Earth needed to see what they were dealing with. Set course for home, he ordered. Maximum speed. As the Terra Nova jumped into hyperspace, Jake looked back at the alien station. War Commander Vorin had made a mistake. He thought showing the destruction of Altair Prime would frighten the humans into surrender. Instead, he had just shown 4 billion humans exactly what would happen to their children if they gave up. Jake Martinez had been in the military for 20 years. He knew how humans reacted to threats against their families. The Zephyrians were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The countdown had begun. 29 days, 28, 27. Across human space, something amazing was happening. People who had never worked together were joining forces. Scientists shared their research. Engineers gave away their best designs. Workers labored day and night without asking for payment. Dr. Sarah Mitchell watched her teams install the first mining laser on a converted cargo ship. The laser was designed to cut through solid rock on Mars. Now it would cut through alien armor. Will it work? Asked the ship's captain, a woman named Carol Davis, who usually hauled supplies between Earth and the outer colonies. It works on asteroids, Dr. Mitchell said. I don't see why it won't work on spaceships. Carol nodded. She had 3 children back on Earth. After seeing what the Zephyrians did to alien children, she was ready to fight with whatever weapons they could give her. The conversion process was happening everywhere. The luxury liner Star Princess was being turned into a troop carrier. The mining ship Rockbreaker became a mobile weapons platform. Even small survey vessels were being armed with whatever weapons could fit. Tony Rodriguez stood in the shipyard, on series, watching dozens of ships being modified at once. His teams worked around the clock, welding armor plates and mounting weapons. The ships would never be pretty, but they would be dangerous. How many do we have ready? Asked his foreman. A big man named Pete Collins, 500 so far, Tony said, with more coming online every day. The real breakthrough came from Dr. Grace Kelly on Luna. Her gravity mine project had seemed impossible at first. How do you create artificial gravity strong enough to trap a spaceship? The answer came from studying neutron stars. These tiny, super-dense objects had gravity so strong that they could bend light itself. Dr. Kelly couldn't create a neutron star, but she could make something similar on a smaller scale. The theory is simple, she explained to Admiral Hayes during a video call. We use controlled fusion reactions to create dense matter fields, deploy enough of them, and you can create a gravity well that will trap enemy ships. How many is enough? Hayes asked. About 1,000 per target area, Dr. Kelly said. They're small, only about the size of a basketball. We can fit hundreds on each ship. Hayes smiled. How many can you make? How many do you need? While the weapons were being built, Colonel Danny Clark was training the new Marines. These weren't regular soldiers. They were teachers, mechanics, farmers, and store owners who had volunteered to fight. They came from every colony in human space. The Zephyrians fight like typical military forces, Clark explained to a group of trainees. They expect their enemies to follow the same rules. But we're not going to follow any rules. He showed them how to fight in zero gravity, how to use improvised weapons, how to turn everyday tools into deadly instruments. Most importantly, he taught them how to board enemy ships and capture them intact. Why capture them? Asked Maria Santos, a teacher from the Europa colony. Wouldn't it be easier to just blow them up? Because every ship we capture is one more ship we can use against them, Clark said. Besides, alien technology might be useful. The training was intense. The volunteers learned to fight in spacesuits. They practiced using cutting torches as weapons. They studied diagrams of Zephyrian ships provided by Captain Martinez's reconnaissance missions. Speaking of Martinez, the Terra Nova had been busy. While the Zephyrians watched the solar system, Martinez had been exploring their territory, mapping their defenses and making contact with resistance groups. On the former Altarian homeworld, he met with survivors hiding in underground tunnels. Their leader was a female named Lyra, who had lost her entire family in the conquest. We have weapons hidden, she told Martinez through a translation device. The Zephyrians think they destroyed everything, but we saved what we could. What kind of weapons? Asked Rachel Turner, the intelligence officer. Energy shields, plasma cannons, phase disruptors. The Zephyrians banned us from using them, but they didn't find all of our stockpiles. Martinez smiled. Would you be willing to use them against your conquerors? Lyra's eyes blazed with anger. We have been waiting 6 months for someone to give us that chance. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Corvin, conquered 50 years ago. The Threxians, enslaved for 2 centuries. The Naldarians, whose homeworld had been strip-mined for resources. All of them hated the Zephyrians. All of them were ready to fight. Back in human space, the fleet was growing every day. Admiral Hayes watched the numbers climb. 3,000 ships, 5,000, 7,000. Most were civilian vessels, but they were armed and crewed by people who had seen the Altarian footage. The Zephyrians were also watching. War Commander Voran studied the human preparations from his position at the edge of the solar system. They're actually building a fleet, said his second-in-command, a younger officer named Krell. A fleet of garbage haulers and pleasure craft, Voran replied. Look at them. Half those ships don't even have proper armor. Sir, I've been studying human military history. They have a record of fighting against overwhelming odds. Voran's eyes narrowed. Are you questioning my judgment, Krell? No, sir. But perhaps we should attack before they finish their preparations. Absolutely not. I want the other species to see what happens to those who resist the Empire. When we destroy this pathetic human fleet, it will be a lesson that lasts for centuries. But some of Voran's officers were getting nervous. The human fleet was much larger than expected. More importantly, there were reports of strange activity throughout Zephyrian space. Ships disappearing, supply convoys failing to arrive, communication, blackouts on remote worlds. It's probably nothing, Voran told his staff. Local pirates taking advantage of our focus on the humans. He was wrong. Captain Martinez and his team were causing chaos behind enemy lines. Working with local resistance groups, they were attacking supply depots, freeing slaves, and spreading word that the humans were coming. On Earth, President Carter received daily briefings on the preparations. The numbers were impressive, but she knew they were still facing impossible odds. How are we really doing? She asked Dr. Brooks during a private meeting. Better than I expected, he admitted. The gravity mines tested successfully. The converted. Civilian ships are crude but effective, and the morale is incredible. Will it be enough? Dr. Brooks was quiet for a moment. I don't know. We're outnumbered 100 to 1, but I'll tell you this. I've never seen humans so united. Everyone from the Outer Rim colonies to the Luna cities is working toward the same goal. And what goal is that? Making sure no human child ever ends up like those Altarian kids in the footage. As the deadline approached, final preparations were made. The gravity mines were loaded onto ships. The boarding teams received their final training. The converted civilian vessels received their last weapon upgrades. Captain Lisa Martinez, Jake's younger sister, commanded a squadron of converted mining ships. Her vessels were ugly, brutal-looking things with industrial cutting lasers and improvised armor. Her crew was made up of asteroid miners, cargo haulers, and freight pilots. You all saw the footage, she told them over the communication system. You all know what these aliens do to children. Tomorrow we make sure they never get the chance to do it to ours. Similar speeches were being given across the human fleet. 8,000 ships crewed by civilians who had become soldiers. Teachers, doctors, engineers, and farmers who had taken up arms to protect their families. The Zephyrians had expected fear. Instead, they had created something much more dangerous. They had created angry parents. On the final night before the EID deadline, Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, the converted passenger liner New Hope. Around him, thousands of ships waited in the darkness of space. In a few hours, they would either save humanity or die trying. His communication officer, a young woman named Beth Parker, looked up from her station. Admiral, we're receiving a message from War Commander Voran. Put it on screen. Voran appeared, his yellow eyes gleaming with confidence. Admiral Hayes, I trust you have seen the wisdom of surrender by now. This is your final chance to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Hayes looked at the alien commander for a long moment. Then he smiled. War Commander, you made the mistake of showing us what you do to children. In human culture, that's called signing your own death warrant. Voran's expression darkened. You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire with your collection of cargo ships? Not threaten, Hayes said calmly. Promise, tomorrow your empire ends, and every species in the galaxy will know that humans keep their promises. The transmission ended. War Commander Voran stared at the blank screen, his confidence shaken for the first time in his career. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Sir? Krell asked quietly. Voran straightened. Tomorrow we crush these insects. Then we take their homeworld and show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. But deep in his mind, a small voice was asking a question he didn't want to answer. What if the humans were right? What if he had made a mistake? In a few hours he would find out. The war began at exactly midnight Earth time. But it didn't start the way War Commander Voran expected. Instead of attacking the Zephyrian demonstration fleet in the solar system, the humans struck 50 different targets across Zephyrian space at the same time. Captain Martinez and his reconnaissance teams had spent weeks identifying weak points in the Empire. Now those weak points were under attack. On the former Altarian homeworld, Lyra led her people in a coordinated uprising. Hidden, weapons came out of secret storage areas. Zephyrian garrison troops who had ruled for 6 months suddenly found themselves fighting for their lives. For our children, Lyra shouted as she led a charge against the alien command post. The Altarians fought with the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. In 3 hours they had driven the occupiers from their capital city. Similar uprisings were happening across the Empire. The Corvin Rebellion started when human-provided weapons were smuggled to resistance fighters. The Threxian slaves broke their chains and stormed the mining facilities where they had been forced to work. But the main event was happening in the solar system. War Commander Voran watched in disbelief as the human fleet approached. There were thousands of ships, but they looked nothing like proper warships. Many were obviously cargo haulers with weapons welded to their hulls. Others appeared to be passenger liners converted for combat. They're actually attacking us with civilian ships, he said to his officers. Sir, long-range scans are showing some unusual equipment on those vessels, reported his tactical officer. What kind of equipment? Unknown, sir. The power signatures don't match anything in our database. Voran dismissed the concern. It doesn't matter. Civilian ships with mining equipment. This will be over quickly. He was about to learn why that was a mistake. Admiral Hayes divided his fleet into 3 groups. The first group, led by Captain Lisa Martinez, would engage the Zephyrian ships directly. The second group would deploy the gravity mines. The third group, commanded by Colonel Clark's boarding teams, would capture any disabled enemy vessels. Remember, Hayes broadcast to all ships, "We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species these aliens have conquered. We're fighting for every child they've hurt." The first wave of human ships reached the Zephyrian fleet. The aliens opened fire with their advanced energy weapons. Several human vessels were destroyed immediately. But something strange happened. Instead of retreating, the human ships kept coming. Captain Lisa Martinez guided her mining ship Rock Crusher directly toward a Zephyrian cruiser. Her vessel was ugly and slow, but it was also incredibly tough. The alien energy beams burned through her improvised armor, but they couldn't stop her. "Fire the laser," she shouted. The mining laser, designed to cut through solid asteroid rock, sliced into the alien ship's hull like a knife through paper. The Zephyrian cruiser, built for fighting other military vessels, had never encountered an industrial cutting tool used as a weapon. "Target destroyed," reported her gunner, a former asteroid miner named Rick Stone. All around them, similar scenes were playing out. The human ships were crude and ugly, but they were effective. Mining lasers cut through alien armor. Industrial cutting tools tore holes in enemy hulls. Cargo ship rams punched through Zephyrian shields. "This is impossible," Vorin shouted. "They're using mining equipment." "Sir," his tactical officer said, "our weapons are designed to fight military vessels with standard armor. These ships have industrial-grade hulls designed to survive asteroid impacts." But the real surprise came when Dr. Kelly's gravity mines were deployed. The human ships began dropping small spherical devices throughout the battle zone. The Zephyrians ignored them at first. The devices were tiny, only about the size of a basketball. How dangerous could they be? They found out when the mines activated. Suddenly, Zephyrian ships found themselves being pulled toward invisible points in space. Their engines strained against artificial gravity wells that shouldn't exist. Ships that had been maneuvering freely were now trapped in gravitational fields. "What is this?" Vorin demanded. "The humans have created artificial gravity sources," his science officer reported. "The technology should be impossible." "Well, it's obviously not impossible," Vorin snapped. Trapped by the gravity mines, the Zephyrian ships became sitting targets. The human fleet swarmed around them like angry bees. Industrial lasers and cutting tools tore into hulls that couldn't move to escape. But the biggest shock came from Colonel Clark's boarding teams. The New Boston, a converted passenger liner, pulled alongside a disabled Zephyrian destroyer. Docking tubes extended from her hull and clamped onto the alien ship. Within minutes, human Marines were pouring into the enemy vessel. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Their military doctrine assumed that inferior species would try to destroy enemy ships, not capture them. They had no experience fighting boarding actions. Colonel Clark led the assault himself. His Marines used cutting torches as weapons, industrial tools as shields, and improvised explosives to blow through bulkheads. They fought like demons, moving through the alien ship with deadly efficiency. "Sector 7 secured," reported Sergeant Amy Ford, a former construction worker who had learned to fight in zero gravity. "Sector 9 is ours," called out Corporal Jim Davis, a teacher who was using a welding torch to cut through alien armor. Within an hour, the Zephyrian destroyer was under human control. The alien crew who survived the boarding were locked in their own prison cells. Their advanced technology now belonged to the humans. The same scene repeated across the battle zone. Human boarding teams were capturing ship after ship. The Zephyrian Empire's advanced technology was being turned against them by the people they had planned to enslave. War Commander Vorin watched his demonstration fleet being destroyed and captured. In 4 hours, he had lost 60 ships. The humans had lost maybe 20 vessels, but they were still attacking with the fury of wild animals. "Sir," Krell said quietly, "we should retreat and call for reinforcements." "Retreat?" Vorin's voice was filled with rage. "The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat from inferior beings." "But sir, we're losing." Vorin looked at the tactical display. His second-in-command was right. The human fleet was crude and disorganized, but it was also relentless. Every time they destroyed a human ship, 2 more took its place. "Sir, incoming transmission from the homeworld," the communications officer reported. Vorin accepted the call. The face that appeared on screen belonged to High Admiral Zextar, Supreme Commander of all Zephyrian forces. "Vorin, what is happening?" "Out there, we're receiving reports of uprisings across the Empire. The humans, sir. They've somehow coordinated attacks on dozens of our worlds. The conquered species are rebelling." "How is that possible? The humans only have a few hundred primitive ships." "Not anymore, sir. They've built a massive fleet, and they're using weapons we've never seen before." High Admiral Zextar's expression darkened. "You told me these humans would surrender when faced with superior force." "I was wrong, sir. They're fighting like nothing I've ever encountered." "Then destroy their homeworld, show them the price of defying us." Vorin nodded. "Understood, sir. I'll take the remaining ships to Earth immediately." But as he gave the order, something happened that would change everything. The human fleet, instead of celebrating their victory, began moving toward Earth as well. They weren't running away. They were following him. Captain Martinez, who had been monitoring Zephyrian communications, sent an urgent message to Admiral Hayes. "Admiral, they're planning to attack Earth directly. They're going to target civilian populations." Hayes's face went cold. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. The enemy is moving to attack our homeworld. They're going to target our families, our children." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried across the entire human fleet. "No quarter, no mercy, no survivors." The message was received and understood. The Zephyrians had just made their final, fatal mistake. They were going to attack human children. Every person in the human fleet had seen the footage from Altair Prime. They had seen what these aliens did to kids. Now the aliens were threatening to do the same thing to Earth. War Commander Vorin led his remaining 40 ships toward Earth, expecting to find a lightly defended world. Instead, he found 3,000 human vessels waiting for him. The entire home defense fleet had been mobilized. Behind Vorin came Admiral Hayes with the rest of the human attack fleet. The Zephyrian ships were caught between 2 forces, both filled with people who were fighting to protect their children. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours. When it ended, not a single Zephyrian ship remained operational. Some had been destroyed. Others had been captured. War Commander Vorin himself was taken prisoner when his flagship was boarded by Colonel Clark's Marines. But the war was far from over. Across the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. Every conquered species had risen in rebellion. Human task forces, now equipped with captured alien technology, were striking at the heart of the Empire. The Zephyrians had wanted to show the galaxy what happened to species who resisted them. Instead, they had shown every enslaved world that resistance was possible. The 1,000-year empire was falling, and it was falling fast. The end came faster than anyone expected. What the historians would later call the 72-hour war was really the death of the Zephyrian Empire. After the Battle of Earth, Admiral Hayes received reports from across the galaxy. Captain Martinez's coordinated attacks had worked better than planned. 50 Zephyrian worlds were in open rebellion. The conquered species had finally found their courage. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Beth Parker, "we're receiving surrender. Request from 12 different Zephyrian fleet commanders." Hayes looked at the tactical display. Red dots marked Zephyrian positions across hundreds of star systems. Green dots showed human forces and their new allies. The green dots were winning. "What about their homeworld?" Hayes asked. "Captain Rodriguez is leading a task force there now," Parker said. "He should arrive within the hour." Tony Rodriguez had come a long way from converting mining ships. Now he commanded a fleet of captured Zephyrian vessels, crewed by humans and liberated aliens working together. The former mining engineer was about to attack the capital of a 1,000-year empire. His flagship was the Vengeance, a massive Zephyrian dreadnought captured during the Battle of Earth. The ship's original crew was in prison. The new crew included humans, Altarians, Corvins, and members of a dozen other species. Target in sight, reported his navigator, Lyra, the Altarian resistance leader. The Zephyrian homeworld appeared on the main screen. It was a beautiful planet with purple oceans and silver cities. For 1,000 years it had been the center of galactic oppression. "Sir, they're transmitting," said the communications officer. A Zephyrian official appeared on screen. He looked terrified. "Please, we surrender. Don't destroy our cities. We have children here." Rodriguez looked at Lyra. Her people had said the same thing 6 months ago. The Zephyrians had ignored them. "You have 1 hour to evacuate all military installations," Rodriguez said. "Any ship that tries to flee will be destroyed. Any weapon that fires will be met with overwhelming force." The transmission ended. Rodriguez turned to his crew. "Remember, we're not here for revenge. We're here to end this war. No civilian targets, no unnecessary killing. We're better than they are." The assault on the Zephyrian homeworld took 6 hours. The planet's defenses, designed to fight conventional military forces, couldn't handle the mixed fleet of human ingenuity and alien technology. Industrial cutting lasers sliced through shield generators. Gravity mines trapped defensive fleets. Boarding teams captured command centers intact. When it ended, the heart of the Zephyrian Empire was in human hands, but the real victory was happening elsewhere. On HFY, the liberated population was rebuilding their world. Human engineers worked alongside Altarian architects to repair the damage. The children who had been enslaved in alien factories were going home to families they thought they would never see again. On Corvin, the resistance movement that had hidden for 50 years was now the planetary government. Human medical teams were treating the injuries and illnesses caused by decades of oppression. On Threx, the mining slaves were free. Human industrial experts were teaching them how to use their own resources for their own benefit instead of for alien masters. Across 200 worlds, the same story was playing out. Freedom was spreading through the galaxy like wildfire. President Carter received the final report 3 days after the war began. She sat in her office, reading the numbers that seemed impossible. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. Completely gone. Not destroyed, but transformed. The military forces had been disbanded. The government had surrendered. The conquered worlds were free. "How many casualties?" she asked General Stone. "Surprisingly low," Stone replied. "We lost about 300 ships and maybe 2,000 people. The Zephyrians lost their entire fleet, but most of their crews survived as prisoners." "And the civilian populations?" "That's the remarkable part," Stone said. "Our forces followed orders. No revenge attacks, no mass killings. The liberated species are handling their former oppressors through legal processes, not lynch mobs." Carter nodded. That was important. The humans had proven they could fight when threatened, but they had also proven they could show mercy when they won. War Commander Vorin was brought to Earth for trial. The charges against him included genocide, slavery, and crimes against sentient beings. He sat in his cell, still unable to believe what had happened. A guard brought him a tablet with news reports from across the galaxy. Every major species was sending representatives to Earth for something called the Freedom Conference. They were planning to create a new government for the galaxy, one based on cooperation instead of conquest. "How?" he asked the guard, a human woman named Janet Moore. "How did you primitives defeat us so quickly?" Janet looked at the alien who had threatened to enslave her species. "You made one simple mistake," she said. "You threatened our children. Humans will forgive almost anything, but we will never forgive harm to kids. But we were superior. We had better technology, better weapons. You had better individual ships," Janet agreed. "But we had something you didn't have." "What?" "Angry parents." Janet left him alone with that thought. The Freedom Conference lasted 2 weeks. Representatives from over 50 species met in New York to create a new structure for galactic government. The Altarians proposed the Declaration of Sentient Rights. The Corvins suggested the Galactic Defense Pact. The humans contributed the Child Protection Treaty. Captain Martinez, now promoted to Admiral, was chosen as the first director of galactic peacekeeping. His job was to make sure nothing like the Zephyrian Empire could ever rise again. What about the Zephyrians themselves? Asked Lyra during one of the conference sessions. Martinez looked thoughtful. They committed terrible crimes, but we're not going to commit genocide in return. They'll be supervised, they'll make reparations, they'll learn to live peacefully with their neighbors. And if they refuse? Martinez smiled. Then they'll deal with us. And I don't think they want to do that again. The new Galactic Alliance was officially formed on July 4th, 2157. It was no coincidence that the humans chose their Independence Day for the ceremony. The date would become known as Liberation Day throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian worlds were placed under temporary administration, while they learned how to function without enslaving other species. It would take years, maybe decades, but the former empire would eventually find its place in the new galaxy. 1 year later, Admiral Martinez stood in the Memorial Garden on Earth. The monument wasn't dedicated to human victory. It was dedicated to the Altarian children whose suffering had started the war. The inscription read, "Never again will the strong prey upon the weak, while humans draw breath among the stars." A young Altarian girl named Kira approached him. She was one of the children who had been enslaved in the alien factories. Now she was free, living with a human family while her own parents recovered from their injuries. "Admiral Martinez?" she said in careful English. "My teacher says you're the one who saved us." Martinez knelt down so he was at her eye level. "We all saved each other, Kira. Humans, Altarians, Corvins, everyone working together." "But why did you help us?" "We weren't your people." Martinez thought about how to explain it to a child. "Because children everywhere are our people. Human children, Altarian children, all children. And nobody gets to hurt children while we're around to stop them." Kira smiled and ran back to her friends. Martinez watched her play with human, Altarian, and Corvin children. They laughed together in a dozen different languages. This was what the war had really been about. Not conquest or empire or galactic dominance. It was about making sure children could play safely, no matter what species they belonged to. The Zephyrians had thought they were dealing with a primitive, weak species. They had expected fear and submission. Instead, they had awakened humanity's protective instincts. They had learned, too late, that there are few forces in the universe more dangerous than parents defending their children. The galaxy was at peace, now protected by the watchful eyes of species who remembered what oppression felt like. The Galactic Alliance grew stronger every year, bound together by a simple promise: never again. And in the depths of space, on worlds throughout the galaxy, children slept safely in their beds. They were protected by fleets of human ships and alien vessels crewed by beings who had learned that some things were worth fighting for. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. The Age of Freedom had begun, and if anyone else in the galaxy was thinking about conquering innocent worlds and enslaving children, they had only to look at the memorial on Earth to remember what happened to the last beings who tried. The inscription said it all. Never again while humans draw breath among the stars. It was both a promise and a warning. The galaxy had learned to take both very seriously. President Helen Carter sat in the emergency meeting room deep under the White House. Around the table sat the most important people in human space. Admiral Scott Hayes commanded the colonial fleet. General Patricia Stone led the Earth Defense Forces. Dr. Kevin Brooks ran the Colonial Defense Institute. They had all watched the recording from the Terra Nova. They had all seen the burning cities of HFY. They had all heard War Commander Vorin laugh as he described breaking alien children. "How many ships do they have?" President Carter asked. Dr. Brooks looked at his tablet. "Our best guess is 50,000 combat vessels, maybe more. They control over 200 star systems." "And us?" 300 ships, Admiral Hayes said, quietly. "Most of them are cargo haulers and research vessels. We have maybe 50 real warships." General Stone shook her head. "The numbers don't lie. They could wipe us out without breaking a sweat." "Maybe," President Carter said. "But they made one big mistake." "What's that?" Dr. Brooks asked. They showed us what they do to children. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Humans could accept a lot of things. They could accept defeat. They could accept occupation. They could even accept slavery, but they would never accept harm coming to their children. What's our timeline? The president asked. 30 days, Admiral Hayes said. Varin said he'd give us 30 Earth days to surrender. Then we have 30 days to get ready. Dr. Brooks looked up from his notes. Madam President, with respect, 30 days isn't enough time to build a fleet that can match theirs. Who said anything about matching them? President Carter stood up. Admiral Hayes, I want every civilian ship in human space converted for combat. I don't care if it's a garbage hauler or a luxury yacht. If it can fly, it can fight. Yes, ma'am. General Stone, start recruiting. I want every person who can hold a weapon ready to fight. Already working on it, ma'am. Dr. Brooks, you have the hardest job. I need weapons. I need them fast. I need them cheap. And I need a lot of them. Dr. Brooks nodded. I have some ideas. The meeting ended and the word went out across human space. Every colony, every space station, every ship received the same message. The aliens were coming. 30 days to get ready. The response was immediate. On Mars, Dr. Sarah Mitchell looked at the giant mining lasers her teams used to cut through rock. Can we mount these on ships? She asked her assistant. Probably, he said. But they were never meant to be weapons. They cut through solid rock, Dr. Mitchell said. I bet they'll cut through alien armor too. On Luna, Dr. Grace Kelly worked with her team to build something new. They had been studying Earth's magnetic field for years. Now they were trying to create artificial gravity wells that could trap enemy ships. It's never been done before, her assistant said. Lots of things have never been done before, Dr. Kelly replied. That doesn't mean they can't be done. In the asteroid belt, Tony Rodriguez was converting mining ships into warships. The big industrial vessels weren't pretty, but they were tough. He welded armor plates to their hulls and mounted weapons wherever he could find space. These things will never win any beauty contests, he told his crew. Don't need to be pretty, one of them said. Just need to fight. Back on Earth, former Marine Colonel Danny Clark was training a new kind of soldier. The boarding companies were designed to capture enemy ships, not destroy them. They practiced fighting in zero gravity with improvised weapons and armor. The aliens think we're weak, he told his troops. Let's show them what weak looks like, up close. The Zephyrians watched all this activity from their position at the edge of the solar system. Vorin had brought 100 ships as a demonstration of force. He expected the humans to see them and give up hope. Instead, the human activity increased. What are they doing? Asked his second-in-command. Building a fleet, Vorin said. A pathetic fleet of civilian ships and mining equipment. Should we be concerned? Vorin laughed. Concerned about what? They're like insects trying to fight a boot. Let them prepare. It will make their defeat more amusing. But some of the younger Zephyrian officers were not so confident. They had studied human history. They knew about the world wars. They knew about human determination when their homes were threatened. Sir, one of them said, perhaps we should attack now, before they finish their preparations. No, Vorin said. I gave them 30 days. I am a being of my word. Besides, I want the other species to see how futile resistance is. When we crush this human fleet, every other potential rebel will think twice. On Earth, President Carter received daily reports from across human space. The numbers were impressive. In just 2 weeks, the civilian fleet had grown to over 5,000 ships. Most of them were cargo haulers and passenger liners converted for war. But they could fly and they could fight. The weapon factories were working around the clock. Dr. Brooks had teams building everything from missile launchers to boarding equipment. The gravity mines were still experimental, but early tests looked promising. How are we doing on recruitment? The president asked General Stone. Better than expected, Stone replied. We have volunteers from every colony. Even the peaceful research stations are sending people. Why? They all saw the recording from Altair Prime. Nobody wants their children to end up like those alien kids. Meanwhile, Captain Martinez and the Terra Nova were not sitting idle. They had been given a special mission. While the Zephyrians watched the solar system, Martinez was exploring their space looking for weaknesses. He found them. The Zephyrian Empire was huge, but it was also old. It had grown lazy over the centuries. Many of their conquered worlds were guarded by only small forces. The aliens had never faced a real challenge in generations. Better yet, Martinez discovered something the Zephyrians had never expected. The conquered species still hated their masters. On world after world, he found underground resistance movements. The Altarians, despite their recent conquest, had already begun planning revenge. They're all waiting for someone to make the first move, he reported to Earth. Intelligence officer Rachel Turner worked with these resistance groups. She learned the locations of Zephyrian supply depots, shipyards, and command centers. More importantly, she learned that many of the conquered species had technologies the Zephyrians had banned them from using. They're sitting on a powder keg, she told Martinez. All it needs is a spark. As the 30-day deadline approached, Admiral Hayes reviewed the human forces. They now had over 8,000 ships of various sizes. The crews were mostly civilians, but they were motivated. They had all seen what happened to the Altarian children. The weapons were crude but effective. Mining lasers, industrial cutting tools, and improvised missiles filled the cargo holds of converted freighters. The gravity mines were still untested in real combat, but the theory was sound. It's not much, Hayes told his staff. It's what we have, General Stone replied. And it's more than the Zephyrians expect. On the final day, War Commander Vorin sent a message to Earth. He appeared on screens across human space, his yellow eyes gleaming with confidence. Humans, he said. Your 30 days are over. I see you have built a small fleet of cargo ships and mining equipment. How adorable. But the time for games has ended. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Resist, and we will do to your children what we did to the Altarians. The response came from Admiral Hayes. His message was broadcast on all frequencies so every ship in both fleets could hear it. War Commander Vorin, Hayes said, you made 2 mistakes. First, you threatened our children. Second, you thought we would be scared. Hayes paused and looked directly into the camera. You wanted to see what humans are capable of when threatened. Congratulations, you're about to find out. The transmission ended. Across human space, 8,000 ships began moving toward the Zephyrian position. They were not military vessels. They were cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining ships, and research vessels. Their crews were doctors, teachers, engineers, and farmers, but they were also parents, and someone had threatened their children. War. Commander Vorin looked at the approaching human fleet and laughed. Look at them, he told his officers. Cargo ships pretending to be warships. This will be over in minutes. He had no idea that he was about to witness the end of the Zephyrian Empire.